Acknowledging the strength that had been forged within him, Jules rises with an unbreakable determination that was fueled entirely by himself. Knowing that the shadow and guilt of his past weighed on him too much to continue neglecting, his sights are set on the dreary grounds that he had fled from all those months ago. Unsure of what awaited him, but confident he would be able to overcome it, Jules prepares for several days away from his home, as he makes the commitment not to return until his mission is seen through. Pulling out onto the main road as the foggy morning drapes around him, Jules stares down the blurry street and cherishes the addictive sensation of finally being proactive. Knowing he'll need the entire route clear for his plans, Jules doesn't spare any of the shambling husks occupying the pavement as he scatters their rotten souls across the ground. Realizing just how effective he had become at dishing out death, the hardened and tested survivor doesn't recognize the sniveling weakling that had crawled through these very woods before. Growing closer to the main entrance as the morning fog clears, Jules begins to squint at the disfigured faces of the infected, starting the unpleasant process of finding his lost companions. Discerning that there were far fewer undead than when he had last probed the country club, Jules fears that his targets might have migrated during his lengthy absence, but still pushes towards the main building with precarious hope. Struggling with the quiet as he pulls in front of the building that held a mountain of painful memories, Jules tries his best to suppress the haunting echoes that roll out of the shattered windows and across the overgrown lawn. Delight, horror, and disgust all grip Jules in an instant as the first familiar face shambles from the dark hallway. Though half her features were ripped and torn, Jules recognizes the empty shell of Kathy Martin as the monster inside wills her ever forward. Finally freeing her from the torment she endured, Jules feels the beginnings of relief working towards his soul, though the immediate pain and heartache was undeniable as he loads her in his truck. Beginning to clear out what remained of the horde inside, Jules wouldn't be satisfied until he found Kathy's husband Greg and Marcus, the man that Jules could never repay. Finding the building worryingly empty, Jules feels his perseverance being tested, but all it did was expose the iron will he had discovered within himself. Sleeping in the staff room to avoid having to face the bedrooms the group had occupied, Jules finally clears the rest of the large structure as winter's brutal chill drifts through the corridors. Stumbling across Marcus's truck in the parking lot behind the building, Jules briefly sits inside and is faced with the stubborn scent of the heroic outdoorsman. Finally aiming his search outside into the surrounding buildings, Jules spots a corpse being reclaimed by the earth before a sliver of recognition comes from the now faded and bloody clothing. Staring down at the now rotting face of the man who had saved his life, Jules focuses in on the obvious bullet hole located clearly on his sunken forehead. Wondering if this had been the work of Kevin, as the now weary survivor scans across the dim landscape, Jules eventually accepts that another one of his goals had been found and starts wrenching the fragile corpse free from the frozen earth. Loading Marcus into the back of his truck and thankful of the freezing temperature for once, Jules doesn't give up his hunt as his last companion remains lost. Discovering another dispatched creature heading away from the building, Jules is confident that he wasn't the first to return here, but judges by the state of the bodies that Kevin had been long gone. Growing tired of searching on foot, Jules settles into the seat of his truck before happening upon a small pocket of the patient dead. While clearing the gathering along the road, Jules's dull eyes scan over a pale face and a denim jacket that he knew all too well, identifying the final companion he had failed and come to rescue. With the entirety of his guilt loaded into the back of his vehicle, Jules begins to hunt through the conversations with Mr. and Mrs. Martin, trying his best to recall any details they had brought up about their home. They had mentioned that it wasn't far and was somewhere north of Ekron, but those two facts did little to narrow down the tedious search Jules now faced. Having reached Ekron proper, and realizing that he must have missed their isolated farm, Jules lights up momentarily as he spots a bookstore silently waiting along the road. Searching over the many abundant shelves, Jules' gaze flicks over a manual that he'd all but forgotten about until the title burned into his mind. Excited to see his power return once he made it back to Little Hope, Jules doesn't lose focus on the task at hand as he mounts back up and continues his desperate exploration. Growing frustrated as he backtracks to the road he'd neglected due to the wandering horde, Jules suspects that this had been his destination all along, before slipping his pistol from his holster and venting his agitation. Smiling as he spots the overgrown home through a cracked windshield, Jules grows confident he had finally found the Martins' residence before making his way inside to confirm. Knowing his assumption was correct, as he discovers a polished pair of boots in the closet, Jules thinks back to the many times Greg grumbled about leaving his cherished footwear behind. Tired and content as he grew closer and closer to putting his demons to rest, Jules tucks himself away in what he assumed was their daughter's room, and idly wonders what her fate had been within Louisville. Etching their names into the rudimentary crosses he had constructed, and honoring their memory with Greg's boots and Kathy's favorite cookbook, Jules takes a long and final look over the resting place of those he had failed. Freeing a friendly-looking gnome from a thicket of overgrown bushes, Jules spends the final hours of the morning claiming a few pieces of furniture before departing the Martins' farm once and for all. Spurring his dutiful truck back in the direction of Little Hope, Jules can't help but wonder what the Martins would think of him at this point. Would they be disappointed? Grateful? Understanding? Or perhaps, much like Jules, they wouldn't recognize the rugged and bloodied creature that the frail librarian had become. Growing closer and closer to his hilltop sanctuary, Jules' thoughts shifted to the last of his charges, still waiting in the back of his truck. Marcus was the one he had let down the most, the man that Jules owed everything to, but had no way of repaying. Briefly, Jules tries to convince himself that the former groundskeeper would be rightfully bitter and resentful towards him, but in all reality, Jules knew that Marcus's enormous heart wouldn't fathom it. In all likelihood, he probably would be proud of how far Jules had come, though the horrors and deeds that he'd been forced to do might have changed Marcus's final decision. Finally completing the task he had set out to do, Jules gazes over the quiet grave of Marcus as he silently begs for the man's forgiveness. If only Jules had possessed the courage he now knew, then Marcus wouldn't be blanketed in soil and snow. Partially freed from the weight of his guilt as Jules refocuses himself on survival, he finally is able to feed the empty generator behind his building before hearing the delightful rumble of the machine.
This is an automated broadcast from the Moon State of Refuge to all living souls within range. We have established a secure community with food, water, and electricity located southwest of Pattonwell Lake, Wisconsin. If you cannot reach us by your own means, broadcast on this frequency and alert us of your location. We are well supplied and willing to provide evac and transportation. This message will repeat at 600 hours, 1200 hours, and 1800 hours. Stay safe. You are not alone.
I feel as though I'm still in shock, so perhaps my words won't be as precise as I'd like them to be.
This is an automated broadcast from the Noon State of Refuge to all living souls within range. We have established a secure community.
But there was a broadcast on the radio from a place or a people that call themselves the Noon State Refuge. From what I understand, they've set up a community somewhere in Wisconsin that they claim to be safe and secure. Claim is the essential word there. Perhaps the pessimism of this world has finally gotten to me, but I can't believe it to be true. The broadcast is set on a loop, which means it could be the lingering echoes of a people that are already gone.
This is an automated broadcast from the Noon State of Refuge to all living souls within range.
They've also requested that other survivors contact them on the same frequency, so I'm going to hold my tongue and wait to see if anyone else responds. If they are who they say they are, and there are other survivors out there ready to restart society, then maybe it's worth considering their offer. But until I can confirm what is true, I'm not giving up what I have fought so desperately for. Besides, winter is upon us. Leaving little hope to go wandering towards the shadow of a promise is both foolish and dangerous. It was good to hear yet another voice again, even if the person who recorded it is dead like all the rest.
This message will repeat at 600 hours, 1200 hours, and 1800 hours. Stay safe.
Not wanting to miss any response the broadcast might cause, Jules elects to stay atop his cozy hill and pluck away at the various chores he could conjure.
Stay safe. You are not alone. If you cannot reach us by your own means, broadcast.
I've waited patiently by the radio for a couple days now, with nothing besides the automated broadcast to keep me company. I'm feeling more and more confident that my first instinct was correct, and this broadcast is simply a leftover remnant of a group that had tried to defy the immense pressure of this hellscape.
We are well supplied and willing to provide evac and transportation. This message will repeat 600 hours, 1200 hours, and 1800 hours.
I have figured out how to repeat the signal through the station's equipment, so now I can at least check the broadcast on a walkie-talkie. I scrounged up.
This is an automated broadcast from the lunacy of refuge to all of...
Tomorrow I'm resuming the various projects I had put on hold. I must admit that part of me is glad no one else announced themselves over the radio. Either means they're correctly keeping themselves isolated, or there really is no one else out there. The other part of me feels heavy. Not sad, not angry, not depressed, just sluggish. It's hard not to be affected by the constant turmoil my life now provides. Jules. Already feeling in a better mood as he rises to a day where he can feel productive once again, Jules listens into the broadcast one last time before departing Little Hope and driving himself towards the nearby trailer park. One of the luxuries he had finally bought himself was time, and with this precious resource, the knowledgeable survivor was once again going to hone his blossoming skills.
This is an automated broadcast from the lunacy of refuge to all living souls within range. We have established a secure community with food, water.
Listening in yet again to the gargled broadcast that he could recite at this point, Jules hefts a dusty TV from one of the homes and carries the immense source of entertainment to his truck. Still slicing through rusted metal and corroded pipes as the day comes to an end, Jules relishes in the accomplishment and pride of a hard day's work and finally feels as though his many efforts have tipped the scales. Knowing he hadn't reached the limit of his education as he rises before the dawn, Jules moves to the outskirts of the park where he is openly reminded of the horrors lurking amongst the trees.
Broadcast on this frequency and awareness of your location.
Finally satisfied with his blistered hands and hardened experience, Jules packs up his worn tools and begins the journey back to his home with growing plans of renovation. Pulling into the monument of perseverance that was Little Hope, Jules doesn't shy away from recognizing the noticeable shift in his heart. No longer was he dominated by fear, terror, and guilt. Now he was driven by his own desires and his unbreakable will.
Stay safe. You are not alone.
Resting his head in the warm comfort of his room, Jules casts his groggy eyes over his home with a tired smile, eager to organize and enhance his modest space. Still nothing to report on the radio. Every automated broadcast is met with the exact same silence that I've come to know over the past week. Now I'm simply waiting for whatever electricity their empty community runs off of to pitter out. Then at least this useless transmission will cease. Eventually, I might get around to figuring out the controls for this station, but the instruments here are beyond me, and there's no instruction manual to follow. Jules. Having acknowledged his lack of VHSs for his newly acquired TV, Jules marks down a video store he had passed by many times on his way to work and selects the guarded location as his next target. Making the usual preparations for an incursion into Riverside, Jules lacks the familiar dread and uncertainty he had held when planning the trips that had come before. No longer did he see the undead as his neighbors, and no longer did he view their destruction as something to mourn. Now they were simply barriers in his path that he was more than prepared to remove.
Broadcast on this frequency and alert us to your location. We are well supplied and are willing to provide evac and transportation.
Finally cleaving a path to the store's parking lot, Jules moves with the practiced ease at this point, as his battered and bent crowbar quietly drips blood and guts across the cold earth. Surprised to find the area so empty, Jules doesn't slack on his meticulous nature as he carefully checks and clears each room and nearby building. Stuffing another marked map in his pocket before pulling his truck up to the VHS store, Jules wastes no time in scooping the many plastic cases into his duffel bag and emptying each and every shelf. Finished with his first objective, the pleased survivor shifts his attention to a nearby liquor store, where he also leaves no item behind. Heaving the heavy bag into the back of his truck, Jules finally decides to look over the map he had swiped earlier, only to discover that the markings point towards a house that was just around the corner. Though the scribbled writing clearly warned for others to stay away, Jules didn't even consider heeding the words, as his curiosity and courage drove him directly towards the mysterious house. Slaughtering his way through the initial wall of flesh that stood in his path, Jules opts to finish the journey on foot, as the now lengthy day was beginning to take its toll on his strained body. Quietly making his way through the eerie neighborhood that had once been the homes of vibrant life, Jules peers through the failing light to spot the heavily boarded up residence at the end of the street. Finally making his way inside as he dispatches the single defender, Jules feels a spark of excitement as he finds a rifle case in the bedroom, before his further prodding reveals a cache of supplies he could barely comprehend. Securing the house as he comes to terms with the amount of food and weapons he had just discovered, Jules can only assume that the previous owner had been prepared for the world to crumble around them, though even their immense hoard of goods couldn't save them from the same outcome as all the rest. Condensing all the supplies into the bedroom as night sets in, Jules wonders if this was the ultimate fate of Little Hope, imagining some other ragged survivor happening upon Jules's forgotten sanctuary after the world had claimed him in one way or another. Shivering at the cold as he rises in the morning, Jules is eager to load up and make his way home, as the worries of last night fade with the rising sun.
This is an automated broadcast from the Nuna State of Refuge to all living souls within range. If you cannot reach us by your own means, broadcast on this frequency anywhere to your location. We have well supplied to willing to provide evac and transportation.
Rumbling up the hill to his station as the tranquil flakes of snow drifted by, Jules finds himself oddly comfortable in his current state. Though it felt almost taboo to admit it, Jules genuinely felt as though he had taken back control of his life. Now the only question that remained was what he was going to do with it. Immediately indulging in his haul from the VHS store, Jules devours tape after tape of a show called Woodcraft, which only stokes the embers of his growing carpentry obsession. Shaving back his overgrown beard once more, Jules's eyes wander to the neglected shower in the corner before his mind begins to construct a new and enticing plan. Returning to the trailer park to scrape together the necessary materials and skills, Jules already begins to fantasize about the possibilities opening up to him. Time to clean up the clunkers he had dragged into his yard, Jules scavenges any last bits of knowledge he could from the worthless vehicles before preparing his new construction site. Finally seeing his first objective through, as he plumbs both the sink and the shower into the rain collection system he had pieced together, Jules smiles with rampant delight. Knowing he had one last bit of labor to finish before he could indulge in his first shower in months, Jules retrieves a respectable Christmas tree from the nearby woods and prepares for the coming holiday. Basking in the shower despite its freezing temperature, Jules feels more human than ever as he dries off next to his reliable wood stove. It's interesting what the human mind does to protect itself. With the arrival of Christmas just around the corner, I find myself thinking back to the last time I celebrated the honored holiday. Though it was only a year ago, it practically feels as if the memory I'm viewing is from an entirely different lifetime. The constant chatter of people, the relentless chiming of seasonal music, the images of smiling faces and ugly sweaters. It all is as real to me as the people I now watch on my television. It's impossible to imagine that the world will ever return to the way it once was, and perhaps that's why my mind is actively working to distance itself from the times that came before. Though I wasn't one for physical affection before the outbreak, it is strange to realize that I can't remember what it is like to embrace another person, to feel another living heart beating alongside my own. At least I still have the radio broadcast and its endlessly entertaining and reliant company, Jules. I suppose I asked for it, but in the grand scheme of things, I can't complain. The radio broadcast is now lost, as a particularly nasty blizzard has descended upon Little Hope. Even sheltered inside, the harsh winds and piercing cold force me to wear my most insulated clothing, but I can at least be thankful that I'm prepared enough to survive this. I also invited Martin inside, which is the name I've given the gnome I retrieved from the Martin's residence. Though I know it's a silly thing, I simply couldn't leave the smiling face exposed to the elements alone. At least now I'll have some company come Christmas, though I don't imagine we'll be having any insightful conversations anytime soon. Depending on how long this blizzard lasts, I might find myself writing in you once more. Jules. Beginning to work out to both keep himself warm and his mind busy, Jules finds himself reflecting on all the trials he had been through up until this point, and the fact they had left him fully prepared for such a devastating storm. Falling back on the comfort he had enjoyed before the outbreak, and finally having an excuse to justify the time it took, Jules begins the tedious but therapeutic process of organizing and cataloging the vast collection of knowledge he'd accumulated on his small hilltop. It appears as though the storm has broken, and the dreary and bone-chilling rain of winter has returned. At least I can step outside now without feeling as though my fingers will shatter from my hands, which allows me to continue my efforts on expanding the modest space of Little Hope. Though it is slow going, I hope to use my improved carpentry skills to build an expansive garage, allowing me to begin training my hands at car repair despite the weather. Jules. Having made steady progress on his largest goal yet, Jules recognizes that some tools and items he needs are in his peaceful sanctuary, requiring him to prepare for an expedition back down the hill. Though he was no longer plagued with fear at the thought, Jules did find himself hesitant to leave the tranquil existence he had enjoyed for so long. Spending nearly a week straight without having to face the undead or absorb the dreary scenery of a shattered society left Jules in a false state of bliss that he sadly had to surrender. Gearing up for his supply run, Jules already feels a smothering blanket falling around his heart, dampening his emotions indiscriminately. Clearing the warehouse that he had frequented many times before, Jules begins to search through the dim chamber before he found the bags of plaster he was after. Using this time to also pick back over the contents of the crates, the experienced survivor utilizes his improved storage capacity in hopes of never having to return again. Not done with his journey for the day, Jules arrives at the trailer park that was practically a second home before he begins to strip them even further. Arriving back at the comfort of Little Hope after a hard day of hauling materials and tools, Jules strips away his hardened shell layer by layer as he prepares to settle back into the cozy life he had built for himself. Rising early in the morning, and mostly recovered from his trip the previous day, Jules can barely take the time to feed himself, as his mind and body are itching to tackle the workload he had prepared for himself. able to complete all he wanted, but making significant progress, Jules looks out the growing garage as he settles in for the evening and prepares for the festivities of tomorrow. It's Christmas. I think I can confidently say that Martin and I threw the best Christmas party in all of Knox County. Yes, sir. We started the day with some delicious pancakes, chocolate, butter, maple syrup, the works. Then we drank, we danced. Well, I danced. Martin is a little stiff. I gave Martin his gifts, a Spiffo plushie and a book with 101 icebreakers. I'm hoping he gets the hint. Anyway, heard the broadcast today. Guess they haven't heard about taking a holiday, but no news there. I gotta clean my toilet. Didn't keep all the pancakes down. Jules.
I guess this is what you'd call a Christmas miracle. This refuge shit actually real?
Yes, you're speaking with Tommy Reed of the NNR, and our broadcast and offers still stand. Can you please identify yourself and provide us with your location?
Shit. Not even gonna wine and dine me first? Whoever has the manners in this country.
If you're genuine in your intent to join us, then we need to establish a baseline of communications and trust. Now again, please state your name and location.
Trust? Now that's a scarce fucking commodity these days. Huh. But I guess it can't hurt to at least introduce myself to you fine folk. Name's Kevin. Kevin Conaway.
It'll be several days before I can get a team to your location. Are you well supplied enough to wait that long?
Yeah, I reckon I won't starve by then.
Alright, I will hail you on this frequency the day before they are set to arrive, to provide details and confirmation.
Oh, don't worry. I'll make sure to dig up my Sunday best for you.
Kevin is alive. He contacted the Nisita Refuge over the radio. They've made a plan to pick him up from somewhere in Valley Station, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it. Is it even my place to do anything about it? I feel as if it is. But who's to say Kevin isn't looking for a new start? My stomach hurts. I feel uneasy. It's hard to sleep. I don't know what to do. What would Marcus have wanted? Jules. Sent adrift by the confirmation of Kevin's survival, Jules relies upon his established routine to keep him moving, as his mind endlessly grapples with itself. Though months had passed since he had last heard Kevin's voice, the sudden reappearance caused the now hardened survivor to feel small all over again. Finding himself back upon the road leading to the trailer park, Jules hopes that a day of hard work and labor would distract him from the current situation, but the quiet community only served as an echo chamber for his endlessly conflicting emotions. The Kevin he knew, the Kevin that had tried to kill him, couldn't possibly have good intentions for reaching out to the refuge, but who was Jules to say that Kevin was still the man he remembered? Unable to ignore that he himself served as the best example, Jules rightfully counters with the fact that he's far removed from the meek librarian he once was, and who's to say this world hadn't changed Kevin for the better? Alternatively, and far more likely in Jules's eyes, who is to say that this world hadn't quenched Kevin's already vindictive personality and twisted him into an even more grotesque monster than he had been originally? Frustratingly, all of this turmoil surrounded a group of people that Jules wasn't only removed from, but incredibly wary of. Was this virtuous broadcast the real deal? Were the people coming to retrieve Kevin truly full of righteous intentions? For all Jules knew, the team from the Cedar Refuge was an extermination squad. But what if they weren't? Jules considers warning them over the radio, but that would most certainly place Jules back on Kevin's radar, and even the bloodied survivors still feared the evil that he'd witnessed in Kevin. Trying to at least settle himself for the evening as he departs the trailer park, Jules manages to tap into some of his excitement as he reaches the mechanic shop down the road. Though it now seemed trivial beneath the looming shadow of Kevin, the garage Jules had dreamt about was coming closer and closer to being a reality. Plucking what he needed from the abandoned building and setting back off towards Little Hope, Jules begins to come to terms with his paralysis. A mixture of ignorance and uncertainty cemented his inaction, brought on by the fear of intervening where he shouldn't and the repercussions that could follow if Kevin was provoked. Resigning to simply spectating the interaction as it played out, Jules recommits himself to his current project with renewed focus as his hard-earned position provided the much-needed stability he required. Can't shake this dread that plagues my mind. My heart and my brain are in a constant struggle against one another, and I'm uncertain which will win out. I feel a sense of duty to track down Kevin. No, I want to track down Kevin. For revenge? For justice? Is that even warranted? That's assuming I even could. Who knows what could happen between Little Hope and Valley Station? Who knows what would happen if I did find Kevin? I'm trying to keep myself distracted, continuing my work and building up the garage, but I need to return to the country club, not only for supplies, but because I need to remove my soul from that dreaded place and move on. If I can't, then I don't know if I can let Kevin go. Jules. Re-entering the place where everything had gone so wrong, with nothing but Kevin on his mind, Jules finds his heart quickening, his muscles tightening, and a smoldering pit of hatred building in the pit of his stomach as he shuffles into his suppressed memories. Fueled by a mixture of pain and anger, Jules not only lashes out at the regret that haunts him like a shadow, but also at the very building that held his darkest memories. Unsatisfied with leaving any scrap of the room left standing, Jules begins to slice and cut through the rusted metal of the quiet kitchen as his nightmares continue to repeat behind his watery eyes. Stewing in his hatred as the hours of the day tick by, Jules is forced to pass the last remaining symbol of Marcus that still existed in this merciless world, the silent and unflinching vehicle nearly deafening Jules as he fought the many demons battling within himself. Deciding he couldn't leave the token of his savior to rot in an overgrown parking lot, Jules fuels up the reliable steed before urging the engine to life once more. Hitching one truck to another as the light begins to fade, Jules starts the tedious and arduous journey, winding his way back to Little Hope with his valuable cargo in tow. Knowing he won't get both trucks up the hill without thoroughly damaging one or the other, Jules leaves the pickup at the base of his road and plans on retrieving it once his body had recovered from the day. Rumbling up the gravel road in the early hours of the morning, Jules feels strangely comfortable in the chilly interior of Marcus's truck, almost feeling as if he wasn't alone for the first time in a long time. Wasting no time in having the new steed earn its keep, Jules fills up the bed with fresh timber for the garage as a day of diligence and sweat kicks into full gear.
This is NNR hailing Kevin Conaway. Do you read me?
Haven't done much reading, but I can damn well hear you. The boys on their way?
Yes, they'll meet you at the military checkpoint at the edge of the quarantine zone, on the road heading east from the Valley Station. The area has been cleared, so we request that you approach unarmed for our own safety.
Huh. Should I put my pants around my ankles and bend over for you too?
Those are the conditions for us to extract you, and my team will only hold their position until 1400 hours. The rest is up to you.
Alright, I'll see their bright and smiling faces come in the morning.
The garage is practically complete, besides a fresh coat of paint and some final touches. It's a great feeling looking out the window from my kitchen to see something I've built from nothing. Much like everything I have within Little Hope, it was a mountain of effort, but the final result is always worth it. In the time I've been taking to organize my thoughts, I think I've finally brokered a peace between my heart and my mind. While retrieving Marcus's truck from the country club and driving the rugged vehicle up to my modest sanctuary, I was accompanied by the man I thought was gone. Though he only manifested in fleeting scents and quiet whispers, I knew Marcus was watching and telling me what I already knew. He would never want more violence, especially against his own flesh and blood, despite how justified that violence might be. Kevin is set to be retrieved by the NNR tomorrow, and I will silently wish him well on his new journey. Maybe he'll be an asset to this community. Maybe the loss of his brother humbled him. Either way, he will no longer be any concern of mine, and I shall focus on my own plans and goals. I am relieved to finally put this chapter of my life to rest, though I shall never forget it. Jules. Ready and eager to move past the conflict that had been dominating his life over the past several days, Jules happily returns to the well-forged routine he had crafted and putters away at the various chores surrounding his comfortable home. Though he knew that more plans and projects would need to be established to keep himself occupied, the stubbornly content survivor decides to leave that task for after Kevin's departure.
This is NNR, hailing Kevin Conaway. Have you made contact with the team?
The team? Oh, you mean these stupid bastards who were standing around with their thumbs up their asses? Yeah, I've seen them. Though someone's filled them full of holes.
What have you done? They were there to help you.
Help me? Nah, the way I see it, I'm helping you. I'm teaching you a lesson that this shit show should have taught you already. That you don't stick your necks out for... Oh, looks like one of the boys hasn't quite quit yet. There you go. Think our business is done. Appreciate the charitable donation to someone who isn't a spineless piece of trash. Over and out, dickbag.
Full of fury, and knowing what he now must do, Jules wastes no time in dumping out his maps and scanning over them for essential pieces of information he needed. Spying the bridge that would be the site of his quickly formulating plan, he finds an almost deranged smile crossing over his lips before he circles it with excitement. With the location confirmed, Jules lays out his minimal arsenal for examination and assembles the rifle that will end Kevin's life. I'm going to kill Kevin Conway. I knew what was going to happen. I knew what he was going to do, and I did nothing to stop it. I was too weak at the country club, but I don't have that excuse any longer. I'm no longer the doormat I used to be, and I should have used my strength to save those men, but the legacy of mercy that Marcus left behind stayed my hand. No more. I will not apologize for ridding the world of scum. Jules. Prepping and loading up an extensive medical kit and a duffel bag full of food, Jules begins to formulate an essential list of supplies for his coming journey, though there were far more important preparations to attend to. Rising early in the morning with a singular focus in mind, Jules dons the stained and bloody parka he'd relied on before retrieving his new rifle. Knowing that his plan could hinge on the success of a single shot, Jules acknowledges his inexperience and dedicates his day to hunting down and eliminating targets. Picturing Kevin's shaved head as he dispatches distant undead, Jules briefly worries that he wouldn't have the determination to pull the trigger when it came time, but simply replaying the final moments of his radio broadcast gave him all the reinforcement he needed. Beginning to grow sloppy with his shots as his shoulder throbs in pain, Jules realizes his day was done and returns to Little Hope with only the intention of resting and going out once more in the morning. Wanting to conserve ammo for his main rifle, Jules switches over to another he had secured before returning to a site where he'd already spilled oceans of blood. Despite spending the majority of the day blasting rounds downrange, Jules' confidence can only reach a certain level before the overwhelming fear of Kevin forces him to plateau. Accepting he had done all he could, Jules makes his way back home to enjoy a final evening of peace before the coming storm. Though I don't feel as confident as I would like with my aim, I think I have figured out a plan that will minimize the need to outgun my target. There's a bridge that he must cross if he leaves Valley Station heading south, and all I need to do is give him a reason to leave and hold my position there. One good shot is all it would take, then that monster will be gone for good. Tomorrow I'm leaving, and I might not return. Jules. Unable to sleep through the night, as the anxiety of what's to come stirs him awake, Jules spends potentially his last morning in Little Hope with a heavy heart, but knows that he couldn't refuse the task he had been given. Locking up the gate and apologizing to Marcus a final time, Jules goes over the note he had left in his library, wondering who might stumble upon it if he didn't survive. If your name is Kevin, fuck you. If you're anyone else and you're reading this, then it means I didn't return. Feel free to stay here, or take what you want. All I ask is that you don't fuss with my library, since I just managed to get it organized. If you are incredibly kind, which I imagine you aren't if you've made it this far, please leave my gnome Martin be. Finally, please respect the grave beside the fence line. I know you didn't know him, but a good man is buried there, and he deserves to rest in peace. Good luck. Jules. Setting off in the direction of West Point, Jules feels the full weight of what is to come as the pressure of the unknown begins to close in around him. The Jules from months ago would buckle at this point, feel the need to turn back, but that man who had been dominated by fear was gone, and only a truly hardened and wrathful survivor stood in his place. Spotting somewhat freshly painted signs along his drive, Jules pays the distraction no mind before urging Marcus's truck ever onwards towards the sprawl of West Point. Finding the roads too dense to navigate, Jules begrudgingly turns his direction around to forge a longer but safer path. Finally reaching the eastern side of West Point, Jules was surprised to discover the cold buildings sparsely populated by the stubborn infected. While it was by no means clear, something had undoubtedly drawn the swarms to the other side of the city. Reaching the bridge he had planned to use to ambush Kevin, Jules's relief turns to agitation as he sees it congested with battered cars and burnt wrecks. Wondering how anyone could be making it across the river at this point, leads him to the nearby train track, before the faint signs of tire tracks confirms his suspicions. Scoping out and assessing the new location to adjust his plans, Jules goes through the due diligence of securing the area before discovering a storage room that would serve perfectly as his base of operations. Not wanting to give Kevin the chance to escape, Jules spends the final hours of light dragging crates and dumpsters out to the tracks, making sure that his victim would be boxed in once the trap was sprung. With all his preparations in place, and his will firmly cemented in the intent to murder Kevin, Jules slumps in the creaky plastic of the cold chair and offers up the bait he knew Kevin couldn't resist.
This message will repeat 600 hours, 1200 hours, and 1800 hours. Stay safe. You are not alone.
Hello. My name is Jules Wade. I need help. I'm injured, and I'm starving. I just heard your broadcast in the news van I'm sheltering in. You need to come get me. I'm just outside Riverside, Kentucky. How soon can you come? Hello? Please. Please. I need help. I'm going to die. Please. Unable to truly sleep, Jules pulls himself from the depths of his own mind as the first signs of dawn creep beneath the nearby door. Double-checking both his firearms and the harsh beam of his flashlight, he takes a final steadying breath before striking out into the chilly winter morning. Finding a small pine to tuck himself into at the end of the bridge, Jules peers through the shaky scope as he envisions the image of Kevin racing towards him. Unsure how he might arrive, Jules was at least certain of one thing. Kevin was coming, and even if he rumbled across the bridge in a tank, Jules wasn't going to back down. Beginning to wonder if he would have to wait for a second day as a steady rain begins to pick up, Jules stubbornly refuses to give up hope until the last slivers of light slithered over the horizon.
Stop running, you fucking coward!
Jules, you pathetic fuck. You think you can kill me? You couldn't even save yourself.
I don't have to save me. I just have to fucking kill you.
Come on! Come and get me! You're hurt and killed one, Conway. You ain't killing another. I'm not letting you get away with murdering my fucking brother! I'll skin you alive, you...
Coming down off the intense rush of adrenaline that followed the killing of Jules' worst nightmare, the injured and ragged survivor finally began to feel the true pain mounting in his leg. Hissing and cursing as he drags himself into Kevin's car, Jules' bloody glove clumsily searches the interior before discovering a handful of dog tags clutched in his fist. Wanting nothing more than to shelter in the storage room he had slept in last night, Jules' heart sinks as he discovers the door shattered and his safety destroyed. Now realizing that this place would soon be swarming with undead following the chaotic gunfight, Jules swallows down the shooting pain in his right leg and loads his protesting body into Marcus's truck. Feeling his foot going numb against the pedal and his boot filling with blood, Jules peers through groggy eyes as he roars down the deserted road and lashes out desperately for a solution. Knowing he wasn't going to make it back to Little Hope in this state, the agonizing librarian searches his mind for another destination before the dull images of painted signs flash across his rattled brain. Fighting back the concern of the unknown, as he instinctively steers his ride in the direction of the mysterious symbols, Jules reluctantly admits that he has a slim amount of alternative options. Struggling up the gravel road and pulling into an overgrown community, Jules can easily recognize the lingering shadows of life despite his compromised state. Wobbling on his feet as he moves past the gate and into the yard, a spike of adrenaline serves to return some of Jules' faculties as he begins the agonizing process of clearing this mysterious home. Mostly hoping that he was safe, and deciding the generator would smoke out anyone still in hiding, Jules can no longer deny the excruciating hunk of metal lodged in his leg, and knows his ability to stay upright is quickly fading. Dragging himself into the upstairs bathroom in an attempt to limit his exposure, Jules finally strips off his bloody clothes to examine his soaked bandages before he plucks the tweezers from his first aid kit and goes to work. Fighting to stay awake while yanking his clothes over a hastily stitched wound, Jules stumbles his way across the hall and barricades himself in one of the bedrooms before the overwhelming urge to collapse overtakes him. Genuinely surprised to find himself alive in the morning, Jules stares at the dull walls that surround him before he forcefully urges his aching body from the comfort of the bed. Still uneasy about his surroundings and curious what he had stumbled across, Jules fights back the urge to stay hunkered down as he methodically scouts and checks the extent of the property. Discovering a half-rotten corpse hanging off the end of the dock, Jules is only faced with more questions as he tentatively assumes his security and heads back towards the main shelter to find answers. Beginning to piece together a story as he explores, Jules eventually comes across a pair of journals that he immediately dives into. It's been more than 2 weeks since the outbreak, and I feel as if I have found my own slice of heaven to escape to. Yesterday I set up a ham radio, and I'm going to begin broadcasting on it every morning to hopefully contact another survivor out there. Fuck who is ever in that goddamn helicopter, flapping about like some drunk bird of death. Power finally went out. Life just got a lot more difficult, and I can't exactly claim it was smooth sailing already. I'm filled with both joy and despair on this tremendous day. The pamphlet that I needed, the knowledge to get the power back on, it was so close for so long. I haven't felt the need to write in you for a while, which I'll call a victory for sure. Since my last entry, I've finally contacted someone on the radio. His name is Devin. He's just a kid, but at least it's someone to feel human with again. Writing in this always feels like defeat now, but something has happened to Devin, and I can't keep myself sane with all this silence. I don't know if I'll write in this journal again, or if I'll ever find my way back to this place. Devin's gone. The radio is trashed. I don't know what to do, but all I know is that I'm too much of a coward to check out of this fucking nightmare. Instead, I'm gonna show those undead fucks the true meaning of loss. If you're finding this journal after I'm gone, then I guess I should explain. I'm bitten. I can already feel the infection spreading, my skin tingling, my mind clouding. My last request, if you do find me dead, is to bury me in the grave I dug in the front yard. Please don't disturb the can of peaches. I know it's a silly request, but well, I guess it doesn't fucking mean anything anymore. I'm going to sleep, and I'm gonna go find a nice place to die. Good luck, Jamie. Digesting all he had learned from the chronicles of Jamie Nichols, Jules finds himself drying off by the fire as he pores over the scribbled records once more. Some aspect of hearing another survivor's struggles resonated with Jules more than any published book could ever dream to achieve, and that seed of emotion left Jules no choice in respecting Jamie's final wishes. Cursing at his bum leg and dousing the fires of pain with more pills, Jules marches back out towards the dock with the same determination that had gotten him this far. honoring the grave with the addition of the worn helmet and vest Jules had found by the front door. The tired but content survivor finally lets his guard down and lets the evening pass in the comfort of Jamie's home. Knowing he had to return to Little Hope sooner rather than later, Jules takes the time to lay out Jamie's journals, along with his own note, before he begins to collect supplies from around the house. My name is Jules Wade. I came across this place on my way back home and sheltered here for a couple days. To anyone else who stumbles across what remains, I hope you take full advantage of the security provided by this place. I left plenty of supplies for anyone in need and honored the request of the previous occupant. Good luck. Be safe. Jules. Allowing himself one last afternoon of relaxation in his temporary home, Jules finds himself reflecting on all the various events and people that brought him to this strange place. There was now some sense of closure following the death of Kevin that Jules hadn't fully expected. Whether or not Jules had joined the ranks of being a monster, he couldn't deny that his soul felt lighter, his prospects seemed brighter, and for the first time since this nightmare had began, he felt hopeful for the future. Knowing that it was time to depart the shelter he had found along the river, Jules spends the morning gathering his things and taking one last look at the home of a fellow survivor before he sets his sight back in the direction of home. Pulling once more into the garage he had erected himself, Jules greets Little Hope with renewed appreciation as the evidence of his struggle and journey sprawled out all around him. This is Jules Wade, hailing NNR. Kevin Conway is dead. The monster that killed your men is gone. But I know that does nothing to bring them back.
You're right. That does mean nothing, especially since you're trying to lure us into another trap.
I don't blame you for thinking so, but I assure you my reason for reaching out is simply to help provide closure for those you lost. I have their dog tags: Daniel Burns, Trenton Burke, and Cameron R. something. I'm sorry, the last one is damaged.
Reed. Cameron Reed. I can't offer you anything unless you come to us and surrender yourself. Otherwise, I think our business is at an end.
I understand, and I don't want anything from you. Perhaps I'll consider making my way to you once spring comes and my leg heals, though I wouldn't mind hearing another voice from time to time.
I can't stop you from broadcasting on this frequency.
I'll take that. Again, I'm sorry. Your men weren't the only victims of Kevin.
Hopefully they're the last.
It's done. Kevin's dead. I know the full weight of his death hasn't quite worked its way through my soul, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel relieved overall. Though taking someone else's life was never something I thought I'd be capable of, there is no doubt in my mind that Kevin was a deserving target. It surprises me little that the NNR don't trust me, but perhaps with consistent communication and transparency, they'll come to accept my news as fact, if for no other reason than to let them know that their dead have been avenged. To their credit, they did make the offer of inviting me in if I made the trip up to Wisconsin, but I can't say that I'm all that enthused to leave little hope for such a reluctant ally. For now, I simply hope that the peace I have achieved will last, and the final days of winter will pass by without further incident. It'll be as if the world is born anew when spring comes, witnessing life blooming all around me once more. That would be nice. I'll make sure to document the feeling when the day comes. For now, I think I'm going to spend a few days reading, trapping birds, and conversating with my new friends. Hopefully Martin doesn't get jealous. Jules.